just going to get into it.
We're in it.
Jon Morse, welcome to the XPAND podcast. Welcome to our studio. Thank you for your friendship. How are you?
Fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing well, dude. It's very nice for you to be here. We have a lot of interactions and discussions that literally go in infinite ways of depth and dimension. You float all the time. By the way, you have 3 free floats from the Tattoo Fest that we told you about, but you have not used.
That's a game changer.
That's a game changer.
I'm back.
You floated 20 some odd days, a couple months.
Mm-hmm.
You've really spent some time in that world, man.
25 days in 1 month. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was good. Took a while getting used to. First couple times were not super enjoyable, but after that, got into the routine and learned a lot. Learned a lot for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned you were able to perceive your anxiety or perceive these different feelings of sensation, and then you kind of broke through, or you gained a completely different perspective on it with compassion and really a beautiful way to look at what's happening inside of us.
Yeah, after a couple weeks floating every morning, I came to witness my anxiety as a physical force, as a wave crashing over me. So it went from the mental realm, which I had kind of been starting to notice through meditation and mindfulness practice, but the floating really let me feel it in a physical way. And when you feel it for the first time, it's not super enjoyable, but I enjoyed having the breakthrough enough that going through the anxiety was a positive experience.
Damn. What is that? What is changing our perspective to view something positively? Because for real, what I'm feeling more and more, life seems to legitimately be only about perspective and how we perceive what's even happening. And we can wire that to fit any internal desire or insecurity without even knowing it. So how do we tap into that and really reroute what we're even perceiving? Or how our body's freaking registering the information ultimately? It's definitely a pull and play, but
it's a push and pull for sure. I mean, you have to become mindful of the negative stuff and view it from a neutral third party perspective almost before you can transform it into something positive is kind of how I view it. Lately, I've been going through some things with relationships close to me that, 5 years ago I would have perceived as negative and run away from. But now, even in the depths of those hard times, I can see that they are changing me for the positive, So switching your mindset from, this negative thing happened to me to this negative thing happened for me has been huge. That's been absolutely life-changing.
That phrase right there, things don't happen to you, they happen for you, was literally one of the best things Aubrey Marcus has ever said to me. There was a moment in my life, and I was during their very first Go for Your Win course, and was sitting down at a table with Aubrey and looked me right in the eyes and shared that. And this like molecular register happened where it's things happen for you, legitimately for you,
Right.
for growth, for lessons, for deeper discovery, for opening up your awareness, for infinite ways of possibility. That's become such an unbelievably healthy perspective and what most people would call a mindset. But what's mindset? What's heart set? Where do those things come into play? We get so caught up in what the mind's set on. What's your freaking heart set on, man? I feel like the heart holds more battery juice than the mind may ever.
Yeah. You got to follow your heart, but take your mind with you. You know?
We talk about that one often.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it's hard to multitask those.
That's probably one of the most difficult dichotomies and lessons that we face as people. When to listen to your heart, when to listen to your mind.
Especially when you're tied in with a group of people, whether it be family or coworkers or society. You know, there's things that might, it's kind of hard to put into words, but there's things that might do your heart good, but do the people around you bad. And if they are already intertwined in your heart and you have responsibility to them, you have to learn how to multitask. You know, taking care of yourself and your responsibility to others.
What's bad on their part? Because if you look at it, if you're following your heart and it may register in their perspective as seemingly bad, is there even a bad? Because it's happening for them. What do they need to be learning? There's a weird...
Exactly, but am I the one to draw the line in the sand and say, hey, you better learn this lesson right now, you know, or it's going to hurt.
Is that the intention? Or is the intention to really follow your heart?
Right.
And hopefully the people around you that you love and that love you back can understand that.
Right.
And it's very difficult.
If there's times where I want to, my wife thinks this is insane. We were driving through Oregon, outside Burns, and there was a guy walking a hand cart across the country. Right. And he looked like he had just the clothes on his back. He had his hand cart with some stuff in it, probably some water. And he was out in just this godforsaken land, this terrible part of Oregon. And something inside me was like, man, that would be amazing. You know, it would be, if you could walk across the country with a hand cart, it would be a 3-month, you know, walking meditation. And so part of me desires to do something like that. Go off grid, you know, go live in a cave, you know, go ride my bike across the country or whatever. But that would, even though it would be such great benefit to me, it would do such harm to my wife and children. You know, I could draw the line in the sand and say, hey, get over it. I'm doing this for me. It's going to make me a better person. But my girls, my wife wouldn't see it that way.
It's a very good example, especially for people who don't have a spouse or children. You know, I don't even know how to comprehend the change in biological chemical output that happens. One, when you become bonded with another person through marriage, and two, when something from inside of you is born and birthed into the world.
It's huge. And my perspective might be a little different from a lot of people. I think children can feel that connection with their parents. I was adopted at birth. And I was adopted into the most loving, wonderful situation possible. Absolutely love my parents. But there is that connection missing that I didn't know was missing until I had kids. As soon as you have kids, it's a different reality. Putting my desire to walk across the country, it's a no-brainer. But at times I do get caught up, I mean, if I'm being honest, at times like, man, it'd be really cool just to go meditate in a cave for 10 years or do whatever, drop everything I have and go do this. But I have that connection with those kids and my wife, and I couldn't be happier with where I'm at. But there is that pull, that personal time pull, and we have to carve out time throughout the day, throughout our lives, to take care of ourselves. So I've learned to do that just with a mindfulness practice throughout my day. I might not be able to go do a walking meditation for 3 months, but I can do my job and have a mindfulness practice at the same time, which has been huge. I think if you're always looking for, the grass is always greener on the other side, but I am where I am. I'm extremely happy where I am. I've made good choices, I couldn't be happier in where I'm at, but you have to learn to work with yourself where you're at.
Yeah, you just started the beginning of my next question would be, how do we blend those parts of ourselves that yearn for that deeper discovery, or those journeys, or those times alone in solitude that come when you're in Peru, or that happen when you're at a 10-day Vipassana meditation course, or going on a week-long camping trip by yourself, into a real reality during our daily lives. And that's probably a huge reason beneath the surface why floating is so huge for people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's a way to bring those parts of consciousness and experiences into our monthly routines, plus adding mindful meditative practices to our daily behavior. Man, you're a tattoo artist. You can hone in and zone in on what is happening and really hit that flow state. That's so essential.
It's so huge. And I'm realizing I've been tattooing for over 20 years, and I'm finally realizing all that time I've been tattooing, I have been meditating on some level, especially in the last couple of years. It's been an intentional thing. I try to talk less, and my body knows what to do with the tattoos at this point. Once the drawing's done and stencils on, and I'm tattooing the person, my body is, I don't want to say on autopilot, like I'm not paying attention, but it knows what to do. So then I can kind of play with letting the other parts of me, if we have body and mind or soul, letting those kind of go off on their journey, which I've had some experiences with, which sounds insane, but we're hearing truth. So there it is.
We are hearing truth.
There it is.
Meditation, out-of-body experiences, all of these different ways to experience consciousness, they can be achieved if we just allow ourselves to kind of ground and release and relax and open up a little bit. When we cling so tight onto fear or what we're feeling in the moment or what we don't want to feel in the moment, man. Those act as hooks, just hooks right into our present reality. And we usually, more often than not, stay there for extended periods of time.
Yeah.
Hours, minutes, potentially weeks, man, years for some people. So unfortunately, and probably arguably, we all are kind of hooked into things for extended periods of time to some degree. Some form of trauma that determines how we behave or whichever. And that's why it's so essential to begin to release and open up and expand a little bit, soften your internal awareness and allow these things to come to the surface and show themselves. And if we can do that while we're at work, man, in some way, shape, or form, that's not only helping you as a person, but that really does cross transfer into the people around you. We were just talking about that before the episode.
Absolutely.
It's so
Absolutely.
huge.
It's so gigantic. And if I was sitting at a cubicle, you know, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't have that alone time in my head. I can't imagine. Maybe I could if I was in that situation, but I'm absolutely blessed that I get to do something that I love, usually around good people, and experience that every day. It's amazing. It's amazing.
It's been really cool to know you over the past year or two and really become friends, man.
Yeah.
I see you like weekly, it feels like,
yeah.
for the most part.
For the most part. What I love about it is, you know, when we first met, I had, I'll just tell the story. I had written off Instagram and social media for a couple months. And then for whatever reason, I was on my iPad for work and I was like, oh, let's check out Instagram again. It's been long enough. It's not technically the devil. So you know, maybe I can give it another shot. And I went through the stories and I think I'd done that once or twice before on Instagram. I'm not into social media very much at all. And a story came up and I clicked on it. I believe it was you taking people to the river to jump in it in the middle of winter. And it was an open invite to come the next Saturday and try it. And, you know, going against everything that I know, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go meet up with 30 strangers I've never met in my life, which if you knew me a year ago, it just wouldn't have happened. You know, but for whatever reason, I felt compelled to go. Oh, and then jump in the Boise River when it's snowing.
Legitimately snowing.
Like, that was cold. You know, but I had been doing the cold shower things for a year, so I figured, hey, this is next level.
Oh, man.
And by stepping out of my comfort zone on so many levels, it brought me to here, which is awesome. I think I had originally wanted to contact you and talk about plant medicine, because something on your website had hinted at that. Maybe not so gently hinted, but it had. I read that and wanted to get your take on the experience because it's something I'm fascinated with. So,
man, you just never know what putting something out there will do for people.
Right.
For people, it somehow was a compelling feeling through your body to join a group that you don't even know a single person in. When you've explained before how that is not in your normal behavior, man. You said, so when we met up for coffee, your wife was like, you're going to go do what with someone you've never met before?
Right.
And we talked for, an hour or two or however long it was. And from there, I could just really tell you were a good dude, man. And from there, I mean, that's been the foundation of our relationship is vulnerability in a sense.
Oh, for sure.
That is freaking beautiful.
for sure. I've shared stuff with you. I mean, I have a book. You could call it a journal, but it's just deep thoughts, right? Deep Thoughts by Jon Morse, and I've copied that and showed it to you. That's huge and vulnerable because there are thoughts in there or realizations that are pretty far out there. You know, the stuff that you're not going to see or hear in a day-to-day basis. I guess depend on who you're surrounded by.
Mm-hmm.
In my world, we don't talk about a lot of the things that you and I have discussed. But after meeting you and talking to you and really just sensing the space that you hold for that type of discussion gave me the green light to go ahead and tell you what I had to share, which was huge. Carrying around a lot of this stuff inside for years and years and years, not knowing that it needed to come out until you gave me the opportunity to let it out. Truly held the space.
I was on the phone with a really good friend last night, and this very similar concept came up where it really does highlight the growth of other people, really does bring out the growth in other people.
Mm-hmm.
Your growth brings out the growth of the people around you, family, friends, children. We can only help the people around us as much as we are willing to help ourselves. And how we understand ourselves and how we handle life, bro. That, I believe, may be one of the ultimate gifts and presents to give anybody around us. How we handle the world, internally, externally. Do we just let it fucking invade us without any sense of, I don't want to call it a defense mechanism, but handling these pieces of input in a very safe and sustainable manner? It takes freaking practice, dude. And people don't even know where to begin for the most part. Or perhaps their thoughts and what that process will bring to them are probably pretty separated from the actual truth. And so how do we even move into the unknown, not only for our own self-healing, but literally for the people around us?
Yeah, I mean, that's a personal journey that everyone has to figure out for themselves. I will say that my effect on others was not apparent. I can make a bad pun here. I'm going to. It was not apparent until I became a parent. And having those kids, I realized that every single action, from my posture to the language that I use, the eye contact that I make, I mean, every single thing I do, my kids are watching and learning and mimicking. And I am in a huge way creating their perception of what reality is. When you have the opportunity to become a parent, it's nothing to be scared of, but it's something to be aware of, for sure. How much your actions affect your kids, and then that's going to ripple out into society. We talk about the ripples we create all the time, and that's huge and really noticeable when you have kids, because they're like little mirrors shining right back at you.
Little mirrors.
They are bright little mirrors. Clean, bright.
Whoa.
Mirrors, for sure.
That's actually been one of the deepest, most meaningful lessons integrated from plant medicine for me, is truly helping the evolution of consciousness, allowing our children, our youth, to be able to grow up in better environments with better resources, with better people around them, to kind of show them a different sense of potential. And I don't have children, but that concept really freaking resonates, dude.
It's huge. I mean, right now you could look at the way, especially in the United States, the way things are going. You could look at the political landscape and realize how insane it is. And you could look at the environment and how it's crumbling, and you could do all that. Or you can put a positive spin on it, you know, and just teach not only your kids, but people you're around, that their reality only consists of what they perceive. They're perceiving stimulus. Everyone perceives a stimulus, categorizes whatever they're perceiving in their mind, and then that's their thought. Right? So if you're perceiving everything as terrible, doom and gloom, guess what? You're going to have a terrible life, you know? And I don't want to sugarcoat it and say that I could be in a dungeon somewhere and elevate my mind out of there. But at the same time, I know that the thoughts that I have, I can only speak for myself. The thoughts that I've had can become so real to me that my body reacts as if those thoughts were actually happening, whether it be in love or in anxiety, right? I was driving along one time in my Volkswagen bus, and I started thinking about the seatbelts and how they were kind of sticky, right? And then I imagined, oh man, what if my kids were in the back and we got hit by a car and the gas tank caught on fire and my kids were trapped in this bus because the seatbelt didn't come undone, which is a terrible thought. And then I paid attention to my body, what that thought had done to my body, and realized that my shoulders had raised up literally a couple inches, and I was just an absolute knot, you know, this giant ball of stress, all from a thought, as if it had actually happened, which is insane. I mean, it's not really insane. It's actually the most sane thing, you know, it's actually the most sane realization I've ever had, but it's pretty wild when you start realizing how much power your thoughts have. They completely construct your reality.
It seems like, dude, I'm vibing with that, man. Holy moly. There's a couple of things that are coming up internally for me to bring up. One is, I feel like the Western world may, unfortunately, but this might be for us to understand what not to do in order to understand what to do, unfortunately are becoming too invested in have positive thoughts, have this thought. They're like trying to force their reality into something, right? Instead of just literally understanding what your thoughts do to your body, bro. That, I believe, is what people are trying to get at without even knowing it when they start to think positive or whatever. It helps change your biological DNA, your chemistry.
Yeah, and I think what you said is totally true. You know, think positive thoughts. Okay, great.
It only goes so far.
They only go so far. You know, I think by default, just recognizing what the negative thoughts do, and just releasing attachment from them, you know, and also, you know, if you look at it from Boo's perspective, releasing attachment to the positive thoughts as well. You know, I've discussed this with you before. What is left when our thoughts are not there? When the monkey mind has quieted, you know, when all the other bullshit of the day has subsided and you're just sitting. For me, I have experienced absolute bliss. I mean, pure, surrounded by pure love. And I think once you take your thoughts away, what's left is love. We're the only ones getting in the way of it. Our own minds.
You brought that into play so well, because I really feel like that's where floating is enormous for people. A lot of people ask me, what do you recommend for a float? Do you meditate? Do you focus on your breathing? What do you do? What I would probably be honest, I floated, 200, 300 times or so. What I've learned to do is literally just go in the pod and just be. I try and do this kind of stuff. I try and go in, trying to think about something or work on a project or whatever. And literally, I don't know why or how, that lasts like 4 minutes. And then your body's just like, oh, boom, right into the present moment. If you literally go in without expectation, without worry, without this need to do something in there, you get more in touch with precisely what you are sharing right now.
Absolutely. If you go into just a sitting meditation with trying to get that experience of white light or pure bliss, you're never going to get it. The times that has happened to me is when I'm just being, just human being, just being, just sitting there in a comfortable position, don't need to be chanting, don't need to do anything like that. Just letting it all go away. And I'll tell you, as soon as I started to feel that pure bliss, that surrounded by white light, I was like, yes, I did it. And guess what? It was gone like that. And so the harder I try to meditate and try to get to a certain experience, you can never grasp it if you're trying. It's just something that is there and you need to quiet to find it.
During the Corey Allen episode, Corey talks about softening your awareness. And that relates right now in the way of how do we soften those states of awareness into our daily behavior, into when we're outside of that meditation. Instead of trying to force it or think we do it, it's all about softening that gaze about something and allowing it to just be present, allowing it to blossom to the surface on its very own. Now, dude, oh man, I'm partially shocked that I'm about to share this, partially stoked I'm about to share this. There was a really deep recognition that happened last night, bro. And holy moly. Okay, so it hasn't been fully absorbed or recognized yet, or digested or integrated or fully pondered and embodied. But I believe that time may go in different directions. Now hold up. I believe time may go in different directions. People are pushing for the future. They are literally directing their time/attention forward. How do we bring time down into the body? I mean, down, slow down. How do we become able to be in the depth of time. Moments hold worlds, bro. Float tanks, you're going deep into time. Plant medicine journeys, you go deep into time. Now you think about people who live in the jungle, who are perhaps experiencing ceremonial deep senses of healing with the backwards tradition of ancient methods, embodying that in communication with that through the spirit realm. They potentially go backwards in time, bro.
Oh, no doubt.
Right?
Yeah, that's not that bizarre of a thought. I can't put it into words like you did, but I feel like a lot of these discussions, I've been in that space before. I've not been to Peru and done ayahuasca, but I've been in that space before. I can completely relate. Don't know if I can put words to it, but I see exactly what you're saying.
The feeling of the depth of time going down, even since this recognition has become so much more of an embodied feeling. How do we live there? How do we actually be there, bro? Embed that into our perception. Becoming more present, becoming way more able to be right here without projecting ourselves elsewhere. Having our bodies, having our movements blossom from what we are doing, what we are being, rather than what we're doing it for.
That's the $1 million question.
It's so powerful.
It's extremely powerful.
I believe that's what, I know many people have heard me talk about this, especially you, hone is. You're honing all of your aspects of attention back into your body. That's what meditation is, bro. You're creating this awareness, dude, this sensation of where you are.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's the world you are within, bro.
That's the world you're within. Let's look at it from a mental health perspective. Let's see the guy on the street that has multiple people talking to him in his head. We would look at him as society and be like, oh, he's crazy. Let's medicate him and get rid of those voices. Maybe that guy is in his reality, that is 100% real. I mean, he's not questioning those voices that are telling him things. That is his reality. Who's to say that his reality is wrong and mine is right? Who's to say that your reality of experiencing time going backwards or down, it's all up in your head. I don't mean that it's in your head, get out of your head kind of way, but
within your own perspective,
it's
experience.
In your own perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where reality is so interesting, because even a dream can feel real. Mm-hmm. Or there's a very common discussion around plant medicine. Is it really happening? Is it all inside of you? Are you going places? But ultimately, that doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter at all.
The experience is happening. Something is chemically, spiritually, experientially moving and shifting and opening up portals inside of your awareness to discover depth inside of your potential trauma history, opening up your heart more. There's so much that happens when you go deep within time, being within time. That happens with a plant medicine substance or without.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There's done a lot of reading on religious experiences versus psychedelic experiences. And my general consensus is if you have to use a sacrament to have a religious experience, does that make your religious experience not real? Absolutely not. If you merge with the universe, see the face of God, and realize that that's part of you, then that's what it is for you. You know, if we're sitting in the same room and I have that experience and you don't, it's still a real experience for me.
That when people experience those switches in their awareness, people seem to give up what other people feel or think. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter if you believe me. I'm just going to do my best to be genuine, be who I am, and be around this level of interaction and approach that's happening within me to myself and to the people around me. This aspect of I have to prove you fucking wrong, man. You're fucking wrong.
It's
I'm right.
Missing the whole point.
It's so wild.
Yeah.
But so understandable.
It's understandable because it doesn't fit their framework, what they've built for themselves. So if I make you question your framework, that's making, you feel like your house is crumbling. You're going to push me away.
Bro. So,
but at what point do you stop? Cause you should, it would be hard for me. Okay. Let's back it up a little. I've had a little experience where on a plant medicine, at some point you're like, oh man, these clothes are ridiculous. I should probably take these clothes off because I'm not supposed to have clothes, right? And wanted to go out and be like, oh, hey, neighborhood, here I am. You're the weird ones wearing clothes, right? So you have to be careful to not let it get to that point. And that was a silly example, I know. But
a fairly common one.
It's a fairly common one. Weird, right? It totally blurs the line of separateness, right? And if you feel like you have this unity, this feeling with all these people around you, and you think it's okay to go hug someone, but they're not in that same space, that's when it creates problems within society.
Bro, nailed it.
Which is unfortunate.
Yeah. That's where you just got to be who you are. And in terms of, not be who you are and go hug the person, but just be who you are in love and allow them to see it and experience it. Because not everybody's going to accept it. Not everybody's going to love you for that. And that's unfortunate. But at what point could you have absolutely, perhaps, no control over that? You got to be who you are. And hopefully that's from a place with love.
Right.
And good intentions. And it's weird too when you think about that, because there's the infamous line, I don't know it exactly, like the road to hell was paved with good intentions. Mm-hmm. So where are those intentions even coming from? I think I'm doing good, but if that's all in my mental construct, this actually brings up what I was going to say a few minutes ago. When people get their framework rocked because you don't believe what I believe, well, you're wrong, I'm right. It seems to only go to a certain level of depth in their field of awareness. It seems to be very mentally constructed in thought patterns that, okay, this piece is here, this boom, 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 but nothing seems to be grounded in the body. When those experiences, when true spiritual deep awakenings and recognitions embody your body, man, they embed in your DNA, you become a little more relaxed.
Absolutely.
You become a little more accepting, a little more welcoming of people.
A little more compassionate.
A little more compassionate, man.
Absolutely.
And that's where it's probably, I don't talk about this very often. This is a really good episode for this. Probably where religion may be unfortunate, because it seems to only be these concepts of reading something and it having mental value, and nothing is truly experiential. You're going to somebody to hear about something rather than going right to the source.
It's gotten corrupted. It did not.
Perhaps.
I don't think true religion started out that way. I think it got corrupted. Now you have to go. You go in. You listen to the priest talk about his experiences.
Or he's the bridge.
He's the bridge. That's ridiculous. That's, in my mind, that's absolutely insane. We don't need to get into a huge religious discussion and piss people off, but the fear God and here's your rules to get to heaven, and I'm going to have this experience and tell you about it, and you have to have faith that I had that experience. And if you don't have faith, then you're not going to heaven. Where we have these sacraments that, if taken with the proper intention, have the potential to absolutely connect you with that source that the organized religions, unfortunately have become corrupted to the point where, it's believe me, this is real, but don't have that experience yourself, because then we wouldn't be able to get you to come every Sunday. I don't want to get too far into that, but yeah, it's the true mystical religious experience is something that can be hugely beneficial. And I'm not saying every time someone does plant medicine, they're going to have that. I did not plant medicine, but copious amounts of LSD, and I never had that experience. My mindset at the time was not there. I was 17, just partying and, doing it 2, 3, 4 times a week. Never had a religious experience. High quantities of it as well. Whereas now, if I have the proper intent going into plant medicine experience, much, much, much smaller dose, I can have those types of experiences.
Preparation, purpose,
Yeah.
environment, man. They build like the portal of experience.
Huge. I read something the other day that, or listened to it on a podcast, and the guy was saying that psychedelics are the ultimate placebo. Because you are going to get out of the experience exactly what you take into it.
Whoa.
Psychedelic means mind manifesting, right? So they are going to manifest exactly what you bring to the table.
Wow. To tie two things back around, I know you're a big supporter of maps.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
They're changing the world.
Changing the world. We'll hop on that train here in a moment, but also I think this is really important, maybe just for me to share about who I am and what I've gone through, which I don't have many discussions where that becomes a real comfortable thing. So thank you for being here and allowing me just to be like, hey, well, let's share this with everybody too, or you, or whatever. And so I've thought a lot about religion and the purpose and experiencing the divine source with the divine source itself through meditation, floating, and being in Peru. It's one thing I freaking absolutely love about Don Howard is he won't ever tell you what you're going to experience. He provides an environment for you to experience the medicine, how you should be experiencing that world for you, with, of course, guidance and help if you need it. That's so profoundly beautiful. And so I also understand that traveling to Peru and experiencing plant medicine isn't for everybody. And I understand that religion is absolutely necessary for some people.
Absolutely.
And that community and and the way that you undergo church, where it's discussion and people need those reminders of the verses and across religions, not just Christianity or something. It's absolutely essential for people to become more elevated or enlightened or aware or loving and compassionate. So I've been able to come to a point where I see purpose across the board.
Absolutely.
For each person individually, with their upbringing, with their everything.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that may become a consistent in that level of awareness is, are you doing it for you or are you doing it for the people around you? Do you think these are your thoughts or do you really feel this way?
Right.
And that can be absolutely correct for people in each component of spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
That is freaking beautiful. What I encourage is discover that. Understand that. What's your relationship with the divine? Is it molded into your divine pure soul inside of you, or is it contaminated by the belief patterns of the people around you? That's the only part that I would, encourage or open discussion on.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people discuss how they believe some of it, but not all of it. And I'm not saying you believe every single freaking word or everything that happens or anything, but even that is a beautiful level of awareness. And that, to me, is probably the infamous Bruce Lee quote, take what is useful, discard what is not. It becomes very implementary for people across the freaking human experience. We do that everywhere, with school, with the books we read, with everything. Those are the concepts that seem to hold gravity across the human perspective. That felt very necessary for me to share.
I've got nothing to add.
Thank you, bro.
Nailed it.
Beautiful. Maps, dude. Maps. Game changer.
Game changer. I was going to school for drug and alcohol addiction counseling when I went to college, and had I not found tattooing, which I don't regret on any level whatsoever.
First of all, what is MAPS, please? Before
Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. It's a group out of California that's been on the forefront of research for their big one right now is MDMA assisted psychotherapy.
Dr. Dan.
I'm almost speechless because I don't want to say something and then discredit what they're really doing.
Mm-hmm.
But it absolutely could change society. They are finding, and I'm going to throw out rough numbers here, treatment-resistant PTSD. Okay, this is PTSD that they're using soldiers right now as test subjects, essentially. These soldiers have not responded to any form of PTSD treatment. They've thrown all the drugs at them, all the counseling. They still register as PTSD on the scale. So 2 sessions of MDMA assisted psychotherapy plus follow-up talk therapy, integration, pre-integration, post-integration. Almost a 70% cure rate of PTSD. It's gone. They do not meet the markers for PTSD. A year later, at the follow-up appointment, it's gone up to like 72% cure. The pharmaceutical companies aren't touching it because why would they want a pill that can cure you in 2 sessions? It's all been privately funded, I should say, just by donations. No one is putting money behind it. from a pharmaceutical perspective, which is usually what happens with drugs when they can see a potential profit. Yeah, they're changing the world. And PTSD is not just something that soldiers get, or someone who's been in an abusive relationship. I think there's so many different levels of PTSD that affect every single person, in my opinion, has some level of something that happened to them that stressed them out, that has rewired the way that they function. And I'm not saying everyone should go out and do MDMA and it's going to make them better. That's not it at all. That's so far from what these people are doing.
But that baseline of a traumatic embedded experience runs across the human platform.
If I was raised in the perfect situation, which I mean, I had wonderful parents, beautiful neighborhood.
You would still have a form of trauma.
Because what about generational trauma? Does that play into PTSD? I think absolutely it does. I have things with me that are absolutely unexplainable until you look at generational trauma.
Epigenetics, bro.
Yeah.
They're finding genetic traits passed down for 14 generations. 14 generations.
Yeah.
What's inside of that? War, survival, the Great Depression. Back 1,400 years. Essentially.
If they lived there.
Approximately,
yeah.
right?
Long time.
Essentially 1,400 years back. What? Embedded in who we are.
Yeah.
Dude, seems to be a very common experience across people who meditate. You can kind of delve into that a little bit and perceive it and connect with ancestral history and understand the human consciousness a little bit more and build more compassion and be a freaking better human being.
Absolutely.
More whole, more loving. Evolution of consciousness, bro.
Huge. It's huge. The people, to get back to MAPS, they are evolving consciousness I'm speechless. I've been researching them for years and supporting them, and I'm still speechless at what they do. It's phenomenal. John Hopkins just opened a research facility for psychedelic and consciousness studies, which is so huge.
It's the largest in the world, right?
I believe so.
And the only one in the States.
So huge. This time in society is unlike any other. And maybe it had to get so shitty that these things are here to help elevate us out of that.
That gave me chills.
So I'm grateful to be alive right now, for sure. It's an interesting situation. Me and psychedelics, we had a very strong relationship together when I was younger, and then almost too strong. And so then I was sober for 20 years and did the whole rehab thing, which rehab for psychedelics is completely debatable because they're not physically addictive. But you can be mentally addicted to anything. Sex, gambling, whatever it is. So to go through the programming of rehab and sobriety and doing what I needed to do to be clean for 20 years and now coming out on the other end and diving back into it on a completely different level has been really interesting to watch myself process that whole thing.
This has been coming up in discussion pretty often recently. How perhaps that version of yourself was absolutely necessary for you to be able to perceive the way you do now.
100%. 1,400%.
1,400%. Bro, I'm so happy you're here and well and alive.
I'm happy to be here.
remaining question. How do you feel right now?
1,400% for sure. I had the pre-podcast jitters only for like, I don't know, like 4 months though. So those are gone now. So we should probably turn on the tape and start recording now.
How do you feel, bro? You were
I feel
experiencing some
good.
Some emotion and energy beforehand.
Yeah, like I was telling you before, when I met you, pretty quickly, I had no problems being in truth with you because you hold the space, and nothing I've ever said has gotten an eye roll, or picked up your phone and tried to avoid the situation, the conversation. But being in truth while it's being recorded and put out there is intimidating, but I know in my heart it's super beneficial for myself, and hopefully it'll ripple out into others as well on some level.
It will. It is. It is in this moment because it's being produced, and when people hear it in moments thereafter, it will begin to ripple once more.
Huge.
So on and so forth. Bro, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Has it been an hour? Holy smokes.
That was an hour and 1 minute.
Nice. Nailed it.
Nailed it. Thank you, Jon Morse.
Thank you.